Ladies and gentlemen, we've all experienced moments when we've had to let go of people who meant a lot to us, and if we're being honest, it can hurt. But what if I told you that some of those painful departures were not an accident? What if the people who left were not meant to stay with you forever? Sometimes God removes people from your life to make room for something greater. We're human, so we don't always understand the bigger picture in those moments of loss. We want to cling to what's familiar, what's comfortable. But we must embrace the truth that God's ways are not our ways, and His timing is always perfect. Think about this: God, in His infinite wisdom, knows exactly what you need at each stage of your journey. He removes people to protect you. There are people who, though they may have loved you, weren't meant to travel with you to the place where you're headed. They might have been distractions, or worse, they could have been a hindrance to your destiny. God is looking out for you even when you can't see the danger ahead. The truth is, sometimes we need to grow, and growth doesn't happen in the comfort of old relationships. It happens when we are stretched beyond what we've known, and that often means letting go of those who can no longer go with us. God allows people to exit your life so that you can grow into who He's calling you to be. You can't become all you were meant to be if you're still holding on to things that don't serve your purpose. In the silence, when others are no longer around, we find clarity. And that clarity brings us closer to our true purpose. It is in these moments that God speaks the loudest, and we can hear His voice clearer than ever before. Don't mourn the empty spaces when people leave. Instead, celebrate the opportunity to hear God's whispers more profoundly. We also have to remember that life operates in seasons. Just as the weather changes, so do the seasons of our lives. There are people who are meant to walk with you through one season, and once that season ends, their role in your life fades. You're moving into new places, and they're not equipped for where you're going, and that's okay. God knows exactly who needs to be in your life at each chapter, and as painful as it may be, trust that He will bring the right people at the right time. In the process, we uncover true loyalty. The people who stick by you, who remain, are the ones who are aligned with your destiny. You see, not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Sometimes God allows certain people to leave so that you can find the ones who will stand with you, pray with you, and fight for your purpose. Sometimes people leave because they are preventing you from answering the call of God on your life. As much as we might want to hold on to relationships that are familiar, God might be calling us to move in a direction that others can't follow. The minute you start walking toward your calling, some people will fall away, but you can't let that discourage you. The call of God is greater than any relationship that may leave. And as painful as it is, I encourage you to have faith. Trust that God's plan is greater than your understanding. When people leave, it can feel like you're losing more than you're gaining. But hold on to this truth: what is taken away will always be replaced by something greater. In God's perfect timing, what's meant for you will come, and it will be more than you could have ever imagined. So don't mourn the people who leave. Instead, celebrate the future that God is unfolding before you. Let go with grace, knowing that God is creating space for His blessings to come. Trust Him. He's got you, and He is taking you somewhere beautiful. Sometimes life throws us into seasons of uncertainty. There are moments when people we love, people we've trusted, walk out of our lives, and let's be real, those moments hurt. They sting. The weight of their absence feels heavy. We question, why did this have to happen? What did I do wrong? Wasn't this person meant to be with me forever? But I want to invite you to take a step back and look at the bigger picture, to embrace the process that God is unfolding in your life. You see, we're not always meant to have everything figured out. We want control. We want to know why things happen the way they do, especially when it involves people we've let into our hearts. But faith is not about having all the answers. Faith is about trusting in God's plan, even when the road ahead feels unclear. There's a beauty in surrendering to what God is doing, even when it doesn't make sense in the moment. The truth is, the process of growth and transformation is rarely easy. It's filled with moments of discomfort, moments that challenge us to stretch beyond our comfort zones, beyond the familiar. And when people leave, when they step out of your life, it's God gently reminding you that He is in control, that what's happening is part of a bigger purpose, one that you might not understand right now, but one that is shaping you into the person you were always meant to be. Embrace this process, because it's in these seasons of change that God is doing some of His most profound work in you. He's taking you through a transformation, and that can only happen when you're willing to let go of the things and even the people that no longer serve the path He has for you. And yes, it may hurt. Yes, it may feel like a loss, but remember, God's hand is guiding you in every step. Every turn is bringing you closer to the person you were always destined to become. Sometimes we try to hold on to relationships because they're comfortable, they're familiar, but growth doesn't happen in comfort. If you want to evolve, if you want to step into everything God has for you, you have to trust that He is moving things around for your benefit. It might look like loss now, but it's just the beginning of a deeper, more powerful transformation. So instead of resisting the process, embrace it, lean into it. God is not taking anything from you that you don't need. He is clearing the path for something even better. I know it can feel overwhelming to walk through a season where people you thought would always be there are no longer by your side. But here's what I want you to remember. It's in these moments that God is doing something beautiful. The space that feels empty today will soon be filled with new beginnings, new connections, new growth. You don't have to understand it all right now. The only thing you need to do is trust that God is working all things together for your good. So embrace the process, lean into the changes, trust the journey even when it doesn't make sense. The pain you feel today is just the beginning of the transformation God is orchestrating in your. There are moments in life when we can't see the dangers lurking ahead, but God does. There are people, relationships, and circumstances that seem harmless on the surface, yet God knows exactly how they can affect your future. You may not understand it now, but sometimes when God removes people from your life, He's not punishing you, He's protecting you. It's easy to think that the void left behind is a loss, but in truth, it's God's way of keeping you safe, guarding your heart, and redirecting your steps. Imagine for a moment that you're walking down a path and there are people walking beside you. Some are meant to walk with you for a while, but others, despite their good intentions, can become distractions. They can pull you off course, not because they want to harm you, but because they can't see the bigger picture of where you're heading. God in His wisdom sees things we don't. He knows the unseen, the things hidden in the heart, the influences that might try to mislead or delay you from reaching your true potential. So He takes certain people out of your life, not because they were bad, but because He's protecting your future. You may not always recognize the threat in a relationship until you look back and see how much damage it caused. Maybe you stayed in a friendship or relationship too long, giving and giving, only to realize it drained you, kept you stuck, or even pulled you into places you never intended to go. But God knew what you couldn't see. He knew that the person, though they may have appeared to be a friend, had become a weight you weren't meant to carry. Their influence was taking you further from your purpose, and in His love, He stepped in and made the painful decision to separate you from that influence. We're human, and it's natural to want to keep people in our lives who we think are good for us. But there's a difference between being good for us and being right for us. Just because someone is good doesn't mean they are the right person to walk with you into the next chapter of your life. Sometimes God removes people because they are simply not aligned with the future He's preparing for you. He's protecting you from relationships that could stunt your growth, from people who would hold you back from your destiny. And although it hurts in the moment, you have to trust that God, who sees all things, knows exactly what you need to flourish. And protection isn't just about people, it's about situations too. There may be opportunities that seem perfect, doors that appear to open just for you, but God knows the trap waiting behind that door. He knows the dangers you can't see, and when He closes a door that you thought was an open path, trust that it's His protective hand keeping you from something that would have hurt you down the road. It might feel like a setback, but it's really a divine redirection. In those moments, we must learn to thank God for what He's protecting us from, even when we don't understand why we didn't get what we thought we wanted. This is where faith comes in. Faith is trusting God even when we don't see the full picture, even when we can't explain why people leave or why things don't work out the way we planned. But God sees the dangers we can't, and sometimes the best form of love He can show us is a gentle. Growth isn't always comfortable. In fact, it's rarely comfortable. When we think of growth, we often imagine something beautiful, flowers blooming, trees growing tall, reaching for the sky. But what we don't see is the struggle beneath the surface. We don't see the roots that have to push through the soil, fighting against the rocks and the barriers that try to hold them back. That process is messy, it's painful, but it's necessary. And the same is true for us. As much as we want to grow and evolve into the people we were always meant to be, we don't always realize how much work it takes to break free from what holds us down. Sometimes that work requires letting go of things and people that we've held on to for too long. Some of us are holding on to relationships, habits, and even mindsets that have outlived their purpose in our lives. These things are not bad in themselves, but they are no longer aligned with the person we are becoming. When we resist the process of change, when we try to hold on to what we know simply because it's familiar, we keep ourselves in a state of stagnation. We prevent ourselves from stepping into the fullness of who we are meant to be. But when we allow ourselves to let go, to shed those old layers, we make space for something greater. The process of letting go, of allowing God to remove what no longer serves us, is painful, yes, but it's also the very catalyst for our transformation. There's something powerful about stepping into the unknown. It's in the unfamiliar places that we are truly tested, where we begin to discover strengths we didn't know we had. Growth often comes when we face situations that challenge us, that stretch us beyond our limits. It's the moments when we feel like we're being pulled apart, when everything feels uncertain, that we begin to see who we really are and what we're truly capable of. Just think about it. Every time you faced a challenge in your life, a trial or tribulation, something that made you question your path or your worth, you've come out stronger. Maybe it didn't feel that way at the time. Maybe you couldn't see the purpose in the pain, but now looking back, you realize that those moments were shaping you, molding you, preparing you for the next step in your journey. Growth is a process and transformation is a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not instantaneous. There are times in life when everything seems clouded, when the noise around us drowns out the voice we need to hear the most, our own, and even God's. We can feel lost, unsure of what our next step should be, unsure of who we really are and what we're supposed to do in this world. It's easy to get distracted by the opinions of others, by expectations, and by what the world tells us success looks like. But deep down, we all have a purpose. We all have a calling that's uniquely ours, and it's in those moments of uncertainty that God begins to bring clarity. You see, clarity doesn't always come in a big dramatic moment. It doesn't always arrive with the sound of trumpets or the light of 1,000 stars. Often clarity comes in the stillness, in the quiet moments where everything around us slows down and we're left with just ourselves and God. It's in these moments of solitude that God speaks the clearest. When everything else falls away, you start to hear the whispers of your heart, the whispers of your true calling. The distractions fade and you're left with a more focused sense of direction. Sometimes God removes people and situations from our lives, not because we've done something wrong, but because He wants to give us the space to hear Him clearly. He knows that we cannot move forward in the fullness of our purpose when we're surrounded by confusion and noise. It's easy to be swayed by others, to follow the crowd, but when God steps in and removes certain things, He's giving you the chance to hear His voice more clearly, to see the path He's laid out for you, free from the distractions that might have clouded your vision before. Clarity doesn't always come in the way we expect it. It may not happen all at once. Sometimes it's a slow unfolding, a gentle revealing of the next step. And here's the thing about clarity: once it starts to come, it has a way of aligning everything else in your life. The pieces begin to fall into place, and what once felt uncertain starts to feel more like a roadmap. You might look around and wonder how you ever got so off track, but then you'll see how God was using even the difficult moments, the confusion, the waiting, the loss, to prepare you for this very moment of clarity. You begin to see that the people who left your life weren't just going away, they were making space for you to step into your purpose. God knows that for you to walk confidently into your calling, you need to be free from distractions, free from the voices that were holding you back. You need to be in a place where you can truly hear the call to greatness on your life. When the fog of confusion lifts, something beautiful happens. We begin to see the path ahead. We start to understand who we are, what we're meant to do, and what we're capable of. And once that clarity comes, there's a boldness that rises up within us. You stop second guessing yourself. You stop trying to fit into places you were never meant to be. You begin to walk with purpose, with conviction, knowing that you are walking in alignment with what you were always meant to do. Clarity of purpose is a gift from God. It's the moment when we realize that everything we've been through, the struggles, the heartaches, the confusion, has been part of the plan to prepare us for something greater. And as we walk forward, we walk with a new sense of direction, knowing that we are in the right place at the right time, and that nothing in this world can shake us from the path God has set before us. Life is full of seasons, and much like the weather, they're constantly changing. There are times when everything feels bright and full of promise. Your relationships, your career, your dreams all seem to align perfectly. But then out of nowhere, a shift happens, the winds change, and suddenly you find yourself in a season of uncertainty, struggle, or loss. The people who were once by your side are no longer there. The things that once felt so familiar are now distant. And in these moments, it can feel like the world is falling apart. But what if I told you that these shifts, these changes are not accidents? What if I told you that every season of your life is part of a greater design? Just like the earth experiences seasons of spring, summer, fall, and winter, our lives go through periods of growth, abundance, change, and even dormancy. And just as nature prepares itself for each new season, we too are being prepared for what's next in our lives. It's easy to get attached to the season we're in, especially when it feels comfortable. When everything seems to be going well, we want to hold on to it forever. But the reality is that every season serves a purpose, and the shifting of seasons in your life is not a punishment. It's part of the journey God has designed for you. Sometimes we can't see the purpose of a season while we're in it. It's only when we look back that we realize how much that season shaped us, how it taught us, how it made us stronger. And just like the changing of the seasons, people too come into and out of our lives for a reason. There are those who are meant to be with us for just a chapter, not the whole book. We have to let go when the season changes, trusting that it's not about loss, but about moving forward into what's next. The people who leave, the relationships that end, the opportunities that fade away, they are not an indication of failure. They are simply signs that the season has changed. There are times when we outgrow certain people, certain environments, or even certain mindsets. And when that happens, it's God's way of clearing the path for the new. Think about the trees during winter. They lose their leaves, and at first it seems like they've lost everything. But in reality, the trees are simply preparing for new growth. They are getting ready to burst forth with new life in the spring. Your life is no different. The people who leave, the situations that change, are clearing the space for new beginnings. We often resist the change. We hold on to relationships and situations that no longer serve us, afraid of what the future might bring. But if we can learn to embrace the shifting of seasons, we will begin to see that each new chapter has something unique to offer. Loyalty is a powerful thing. It's one of those qualities that we all long for in our relationships, whether they're friendships, romantic partnerships, or even in our families and careers. We want to be surrounded by people who will stand by us through thick and thin, who will support us when the road gets rough, and who will lift us up when we feel like we can't go any further. But here's the truth: loyalty isn't always easy to see, and sometimes it's only revealed when we face challenges or adversity. There's a difference between people who are with you for the good times and those who will stick with you through the storm. The ones who are loyal when things are easy aren't always the ones who will be there when things get tough. And that's okay, because when people leave, when relationships shift, when people who you thought were loyal to you walk away, it's actually revealing something important. It's showing you who is truly meant to walk beside you on the journey to your purpose. Loyalty is tested. Not when everything is perfect, but when things go wrong. It's easy to be there for someone when life is smooth sailing, when the blessings are flowing, and when everything seems to be working out. But real loyalty shows up in the moments when your life feels messy, when you're broken, when you're struggling, when you're not your best self. It's in those moments that you discover who will truly stand with you, who will support you even when you have nothing left to offer them. The painful truth is, some people aren't meant to stick around forever. And that's not necessarily a reflection on you, but rather a sign that they weren't designed to be part of your future. They may have been there for a season to teach you something, to help you grow, but their purpose in your life has come to an end. When they leave, it can feel like a loss, but the reality is that it's a space being created for the people who are meant to be there in the long run. You might feel the sting of betrayal or hurt when someone you trusted walks away, but don't let that define you. Instead, see it as a blessing in disguise. You are now one step closer to uncovering the people who are truly loyal to you, the ones who will remain by your side through the highs and the lows. Loyalty is not just. There's a powerful, often quiet call that echoes in each of our hearts. It's a call that's been placed there by God Himself, a call that comes not with loud proclamations, but with gentle whispers that we can sometimes barely hear over the noise of our daily lives. But if we stop and listen, really listen, we can feel it. We can sense it deep within us, a yearning for something greater, something that goes beyond our understanding. It's the call to step into purpose, to walk in faith, and to trust in the path that God is leading us on, even when we can't see it all clearly. Answering God's call isn't always easy. It's often a step of faith, a leap into the unknown. Sometimes the call might not make sense. It may challenge everything you thought you knew about yourself and your future. It might require you to let go of comfort, of certainty, and to embrace the unfamiliar. But what I've learned is that God's call is not just an invitation, it's a promise. It's a promise that He will equip you for everything He's asking you to do, even when you feel unqualified, unprepared, or unsure of yourself. God doesn't call the perfect. He doesn't call the ones who have it all together. He calls the willing, the faithful, and the open-hearted. And often the call comes at the most unexpected times when we least feel ready or worthy. But that's the beauty of God's grace. He sees potential in you that you may not even see in yourself. He sees your heart, your willingness, your desire to. As we navigate the shifting seasons of life, as we uncover true loyalty and heed God's call, we must remember that every step of the journey is a part of a divine plan. Every person who comes and goes, every door that opens or closes is working together for our good. We may not always understand the twists and turns, the losses or the changes, but we can trust that God is always leading us to something greater. His purpose for our lives is far beyond what we can see in the moment. So when people leave, when seasons change, and when God calls us to step out in faith, let us embrace the process with trust and hope, knowing that He is with us every step of the way. Our future is secure in His hands, and we are being shaped for something extraordinary. Keep listening for His voice, keep walking in faith, and remember, the best is yet to come.